I love to see the towns passing by and to ride these rails neath God's blue sky. Let me travel this land from the mountains to the sea, 'cause that's the life I believe He meant for me. And when I'm gone and at my grave you stand, say God called home your rambling man.
Welcome to Ramblin' Man Podcast, episode number 185. This is part 2 of my conversation with Alan Sims on him being, Knoxville's citizen reporter and urban observer. Again, Alan, please don't punch me for calling you that. I hope you like that title. If you haven't listened to part 1, make sure you listen to that first, because I'm sure you'll miss out on some stuff if you don't listen to that first. If you'd like to find out more information on the work that Alan is doing, go to insideofknoxville.com. There is all the content that he produces, and there's outbound links for social media to give him a follow on social media. But yeah, I really appreciate Alan for doing this epic podcast. Sponsor this week is Feral Giant. Feral Giant is a graphic design, illustration, and social media consultation company based here in Knoxville, Tennessee. So they do work for clients big and small all over the country, all over the globe, in fact. But they also do photography, videography, video editing, and audio editing, website design, SEO, writing, content development. Hell, they'll babysit your kids if it nets them money. So make sure you give them a follow on social media on either Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn at Feral Giant. And be sure to give them an email today and hire them for your next project. Without much further ado, here's the episode. Are any of your posts archived to where they're not able to be found anymore?
Not really.
Okay. Well, I'm asking about the certain old city ones. Like, it's like, I wonder, is that still hanging out there to where somebody could find that one day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, all of those are out there.
Okay.
Every one of them. And, I'm hopeful, and I think it's going to happen. All of my articles will be saved by the library.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We just got to figure out the technology and make it happen.
I don't know. I came up with a bunch of questions, and someone was like, oh my God, this may be too long of an answer. But it was like, what are some of the most significant changes you've seen since you started the blog? What do you think? What do you think is like the biggest one?
That's hard to answer. I will say that just in general terms, when I moved downtown my wife and I moved downtown 15 years ago, 2009, we were like pumped because we'd been like I said, we'd come downtown a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a great series of shows at the Bijou. There was a Sundown in the City. There was, all the stuff. And so I was like, I'm going to live in a city, such as it is. But it's a city. And I've always loved cities. So we were excited. And downtown, look at how perfect it is now, we said in 2009. And I look back now, and it's just stunning. In 2009, the Daylight Building, which has J.C. Holdway and, Union Ave Books and all these apartments, was empty. It was literally, there was nothing in it.
John Black wasn't in there at that point?
No.
Wow.
No.
Okay.
It was empty. If you go down the street, that row of shops with the olive oil shop and Eddie's and all that, those had gravel on the floor. They had never been cemented in for to make them a shop, and they had black glass on the front you couldn't even see in.
Yeah.
And I would say half of Market Square was empty. About half of the shops had something in it. The J.C. Penney building which now has Babalu and of course the residences and all that. It didn't have a roof. It had no roof. I mean, on and on you can go with all these places that we are so familiar with now, and they were not a thing.
Yeah.
And that's happened if you look back on it, a really short time during which we had a housing crisis. I mean, a crash in 9 through like 12 or whatever.
Yeah.
And we had a pandemic.
Yeah.
And yet the change is just, I think, breathtaking when you think about where we were. Now, it's easy to look at downtown and say what we need or what should have happened or what we could be or what, missed opportunities, and they're all there. But what has happened is breathtaking. Another example, when early on I talked about all the parking lots downtown, because every one of those parking lots, every one of the parking garages was not just a building, but in most cases like a whole city block of buildings.
Yeah.
And now they're all gone. That's why we have parking lots. So Marble Alley, love it or hate it, was the first time that we turned a parking lot back into a building.
Yeah.
That was the first.
That is where when Dogwood Rhythm and Blooms used to happen, that was my secret place to park.
Oh, really?
Because it was easy to get in and out of.
Uh-huh.
You had multiple exits, and
Right.
I could throw a cooler with water. And there was so much, it covered so much area that I was like, this is the perfect place.
You're talking about where Marble Alley is
Yes.
now?
Yeah.
It was a full city block
Yeah.
of parking lot surface.
Yeah.
That's all that was there. And that whole block on every side, on Central, everywhere, used to be buildings that contributed to downtown. And there's not much texture there to downtown. There's a strip or two, and then you're out of downtown.
Yeah.
The buildings stop.
Yeah.
And so that's what we lost when we lost that. So it was a full parking lot. There was recycling in it.
Yeah.
And so I used to carry my recycling down there. And then of course there was that substation, which I guess will be there when Jesus comes back to claim the few. Right?
There's a jazz group, or is it classical? Maybe classical. They shot the cover of their photo at that. Do you know Eli Johnson shoots photos at like Tennessee Theater?
Oh, yeah, I know Eli.
He shot the cover for an album that the backdrop is that substation.
That's
'Cause
awesome.
the minute I saw it, I was like, I know where that is.
Yeah, right.
It's like, that place has been there forever.
Yeah, and they would not. Oh, actually, I don't think he would mind me saying this. So I was talking to Buzz Goss recently, who did Marble City, and is going to do the new Vintage Cow. And he wanted to buy the entire city block, including where the substation is. And this would have been probably 2007 or 6, somewhere right around in there. And KUB said it would be too expensive to move it. If we sold that to you, we'd have to charge you $6 million.
Good Lord.
That's what he said. It's like, who in the universe would ever give $6 million? He says now he wishes he had.
Oh, yeah.
Because now in today's dollars, that would have been a bargain.
Yeah. It's weird because I remember, hate to keep going back to the New Sentinel, but I remember when the New Sentinel building was downtown, how big that was. And I remember right after I graduated high school, somewhere down there along Central, near the substation, there was a T-shirt printer.
Oh, really?
And I don't know where they were. I remember at that point a lot more buildings along Central.
Well, do you know where I could never get their name right in sequence, downtown, the Knoxville Downtown
Theater downtown Knoxville,
downtown, like whatever, where that is,
Yeah.
right in the old church. It was a Romanian church or something.
And it was a radio station.
There, beside it was a radio station. Was it one of those buildings?
No, it was on.
It was on down
that side, and it maybe could have been where that weird. There's some weird condos in there.
Oh yeah, there are.
And it could have been that there was something there before. But I swear I remember more buildings along through there.
There's also an adult club on that stretch.
Yeah, I know
right?
about that. So when I worked at the print shop, they used to output our film for printing. Like I would design it, I would send them, they would output the film, we would strip up the film and burn into plates. It was called Color Central, and I used to be in there all the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the upside down pineapple. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, very interesting.
Mm-hmm. The other thing,
there's another music venue going in right around there.
I do the 808. Yeah, that's
That's one of the.
We'll talk.
afterwards.
Put that on the list.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about it, but it's just kind of interesting. The other thing that I remember on Central from back in the 80s, 90s, so there were these little things. There were these little tendrils of things downtown. Was that Sockham, which was then Save Our Cumberland Mountains.
yeah.
Now it's something else, but still with Sockham.
Yeah.
I don't know, something else, but it's still basically the same thing. But they had a Mardi Gras parade on Central.
Really?
And it was not through the old city. It may have gone through the old city, but I remember watching it down off that block we're talking about where Marble Alley is now.
Well, the thing I always bring up that I wish. How can I say this without offending people? I wish we had the kind of businesses in the old city where we could do this again. I remember clearly in the mid-90s where WIMZ would shut down the old city.
Right.
At all four spots, and they would put a stage by the train tracks, and they would have bands, and you would pay $5 to get in, and you got food from all the different places.
Right.
But when I was in high school, whenever that happened during the summer, we would do it every year because it was fun. Excuse me, because it was fun.
Well, WIMZ at that time was up on the hill.
Oh, were they?
They were.
Okay, I didn't know
up there.
that.
Well, by I call it the Murder Weigels. I hope they're not listening.
yeah.
They're not Weigels anymore.
No,
There's
there's something
else.
Shell. Maybe?
Yeah, the shooting shell. Maybe
Yes.
I don't know. We'll have to come up with something
Yeah.
because but that building that's just down from them, and then now it's a data storage.
Oh yeah, I know that place.
That's where WIMZ was.
Really?
It is because I won free albums and I had to go there.
Oh, okay.
Trivia. Yeah, I would nail them. Yeah.
But they used to do that in the Old City. I wish we had the kind of businesses in the Old City to where something like that could be brought back.
I think the businesses, a lot of the businesses, not every business, but a lot of the businesses in the Old City would love that. I mean, they do the market, where they close the street now. They love that kind of stuff down there. But as we've grown, I mean, a lot of things happen as you grow.
Yeah.
That are great, and a lot of things that are, just more complicated as you get bigger. And I think shutting things down used to be like, who cared?
Yeah.
Wild West, right?
Yeah.
And now it's just a lot more complicated, except if you want to shut down a sidewalk. Jody, if you see any sidewalk near you that you would like to shut down, just shut it down, because pedestrians do not need to use that. They can walk in the street.
So a friend came in that he has been living in Austin for 10 years, close to 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And he came back in town and we hung out like 3 nights in a row.
Uh-huh.
And he was like, the only place I really want to go is Peter Kern. And I was like, it's not, no offense, it's not as good as it used to be. It's just different. And we went, and we went on a Thursday night.
How long did you have to wait to get in?
None. There was no one in there.
What?
Wait, was this a Thursday or Friday?
It doesn't matter. Peter Kern?
Maybe it was a Sunday night.
The library.
Yeah, maybe it was a Sunday night.
Wow.
It was a Sunday night.
Okay.
But still, I was like,
nobody was in there?
Nobody was in there.
Yeah.
Well, there was, like one couple, but I mean.
Right.
And I think we walked in without having to give out the passcode.
Yeah.
Thank God. Because that's still the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
I don't even know what that is.
I took a friend during the pandemic. We went, and there was a guy standing at the door, and he's like, you need the passcode. And I was like, dude, what? And he was like, yeah, you got to get it. And I was like, how? He's like, you got to go on our Instagram. And it was hard not to say, in that time, you could just give me the damn password or just let me in the door.
I don't ever remember that before. Yeah. I haven't been there in years, though.
But that's a newer But so I took him there, and then from there, I was like, okay, I'm going to take you to Turn Club. Okay. You got to experience Turn Club.
Right.
Sidewalk. So we're walking up, and then we have to cross,
Right.
and they have to cross again,
Right.
just to get to Turn Club.
And when you cross, you've got that chain link fence along there that has all these little I don't know what you call them, but stanchions or something sticking out from them with sandbags over them to hold up the fence because the fence falls over all the time. So you can't walk on this sidewalk. You go to that sidewalk and you might fall and kill yourself. I wrote an article about it. I do not understand. I mean, we're so proud of our walkability, right?
Yeah.
And then we'll just close down a sidewalk.
yeah.
The sidewalk beside on Wall Avenue,
Yeah.
right beside Lerner Lofts. That is one of the most traversed
Yeah.
half blocks in the city.
Yeah.
Because people are going from Market Square to Gay Street to Market Square,
Yeah.
back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. They're seeing the little Dolly Parton murals, and they're taking their Instagrammies, and then they're going, back and forth, back and forth. They closed it down. They closed it down for like 2 months, just because. Well, we've got to do this work on the side of the building, and that's the only way we can do it. I go to New York City twice a year, and there are no sidewalks closed in New York City, and I think they have some pretty darn big buildings there that probably require maintenance. So they are required to build a pass-through. You have to do that.
Yeah.
Because the pedestrian is going to be safe. And here, no. I don't know. Those things didn't used to matter. Nobody was going to walk that sidewalk anyway. And I think Knoxville, now we're getting into, like, I'm still going to start preaching, but I think there are some respects in which Knoxville has not woken up to the fact that we've changed.
Yeah.
And I mean that a lot of good change, but we're just bigger, and it's different now. And we're going to have to start acting like a big boy. We can't keep acting like a little boy anymore.
I always say it's either the biggest small town in the world or the smallest big city in the world.
Yeah.
And we gotta, there are a lot of things that could be.
There's a massive learning curve, I think, because I think, my generation was raised in the suburbs, and a suburban reality is just like that mindset that so many people never lose. And, particularly if they don't travel, I sometimes wonder if there are massive numbers of people locally who never go to another city. No. Because when I see the kinds of things they complain about on my website, it's like, but have you been to a big city? Have you ever been to a big city?
God bless them. I work with some people who are from Farragut.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know jack about downtown or any of this. One of the guys, I took him over here to La Esperanza for lunch, and it absolutely fried his brain.
Right.
I was like, dude, we're living in 2024.
Right.
Like, and he is someone who's traveled across this country a lot because he was a minor league baseball player.
Right.
And going into La Esperanza,
wow.
It wasn't like he couldn't comprehend it. And I was like, what did you do when you were on the road?
Right.
Like, I don't understand. Yeah, I don't.
It's crazy. Well, I've got a writer, I'm trying to accumulate writers because I'm sort of at a shifting point in my journey. And he grew up in Farragut.
Yeah.
Farragut High School, the whole business. So if he was in some other place, and they said, "Where are you from?" he would say Knoxville.
Yeah.
And he'd never heard of Java. And on the list goes, he didn't know that downtown had a market, a farmer's market, and on and on and on.
Well, I think I shared with you
goes.
that I work in a building with 50 people who did not know Big Ears was a thing.
Yeah, right.
It's like, how many tens of thousands of people come to this city and you can't figure out, like.
But I guess, if you, in their defense, I mean, I lived out in West Knoxville at one point as well. If you live in West Knoxville and your world is centered out there,
yeah,
you could be oblivious to Big Ears.
I guess. I think it's when I was able to drive is like, oh, I'm going to Dis Exchange because I don't have to go to Easttown Mall to buy CDs. I can go to Disc Exchange and it's cooler, and I can meet people who are close to my age. They can tell me about music.
Right. But, we're talking about a lot of niche values there, I mean, you and I are obsessed with music, but not everybody is.
I know this is, there's been the discussion. Somebody made a comment on this podcast because I talked about the pilot light with somebody. And there was a comment that I took a little offense to where they were like, I love listening to hyper-local podcasts where they're talking about something there that no one else in the world understands. I'm going, first of all, shut up. It's not a hyper-local podcast. What are you talking about? I was like, Google is free.
Right.
You can Google pilot light and figure it out.
Right.
Also, we talked about it enough to where you can figure out what it is. Like, yeah. How would you describe Knoxville's sense of community and the role it plays in the city's growth?
That question could go in so many directions.
Although this is one of my spicy takes. Maybe I should have left this one out of here.
Well, I mean, let's talk about it. There is an incredible sense of community within several micro communities in Knoxville. The musicians all know each other and take care of each other to a large degree, and it's a community. And you see that, of course, at Waynestock every year. That's the best kind of real life illustration of the fact. And it's just such a great vibe. But what I realized early on, and I think every city is like this, and I don't think it's just a reality. One of those world-class fine musicians that we enjoy so much, and everybody in the musician community knows, like Pohanna or, think of whoever. People who are not into music, I don't have any idea who they are. So there's this other micro communities that don't know anything about that micro community.
I still think we are reeling from the loss of Tim and Susan Lee.
The musicians are.
I think the two of them.
The overwhelming number of Knoxvillians don't know who that is. They don't know who you're talking about.
And they're not even Knoxville. They're from elsewhere,
Mississippi.
But Tim and Susan were kind of the backbone and the aunt and uncle. Even though people were older than them,
and people had been here longer than them,
they are the people that really.
I called them the godfather and godmother of Knoxville music. I mean, they were the heart and soul.
Yeah.
So, how do you think?
I think it's
without their presence, is anybody going to step into the void? Do we need somebody to step into the void? What happens next with that?
I am choosing my words carefully. Even though I've said things on here that I probably... I think, we're too fractured. Everybody's trying to own the thing. And I think there's a lot of people that could be in leadership for that, but they lack the humility. They have to make it about them. Or make sure everyone knows they are in charge.
Right.
And I think that's in the art world. I think that's in the music scene here.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are people that if they wanted to, they could make it work. I think you have someone like Kelsey Walker who's doing great work. Do you know Kelsey?
I don't think
Holy
so.
Hell, Kelsey's the best.
I know the name, though.
So Kelsey...
Maybe I have met her.
Kelsey is the one that I think could do it. But I think she's a... And Kelsey, if you're listening to this, feel free to punch me in the face for saying this. I think she's scraping. She doesn't have something steady and that can,
right.
that she can do what all she could do.
Right. Well, and that's a lot of the art world, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's music or other arts.
But I look at. I love Big Ears, and I love Waynestock. The two of those don't live in the same world.
No.
And I think one of those groups would happily be involved with the other group. But I think the other group kind of doesn't look down or just like, that's not worth our time. And that really kind of bothers me.
There is some local elements though that are built into Big Ears.
I know, but it's.
I mean, RB is for one thing been very incorporated with.
That's one. Like Waynestock is 3 nights of music.
I know,
and it's so many people and such a great example of Knoxville music.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there are other people who do music here in town or are involved with the music scene. They're like, I can't own that, so I don't want to acknowledge that exists. And that bothers me.
Right.
Those are the people I want to smack in the face.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, no. That's not how we are here.
Right.
Good Lord, we really veered off this quick.
I will say another thing about community, and that is, this is a different thing. 10 years ago, I could not walk into a place, coffee shop, restaurant, whatever, without knowing the people there, the people over there, and oh yeah, him in the corner. And now I walk into lots of places and I don't know who these people are.
Yeah.
I mean, there are particular coffee shop. I got my haunts, right? Java being the main one, but there are particular coffee shops so I can walk in. I do not know a soul in there. They don't even look familiar. And that's a difference in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And is it bad or is it good? I think it's kind of neither. I mean, one of the things that I've always loved about cities, I mean, I knew this when I was like a baby boy and we would go to New Orleans. I love that you can be there and you can be in the middle of all these people and you can be by yourself.
Yeah.
Because nobody knows who you are and they don't really care. And that's cool.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like enjoying soaking up the scene. I love watching people in a city and I don't want to know who they are. I want to make up my own stories in my head.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the joys of a city to me. It's imagining all the lives. Kind of like that moment you were talking about earlier where you're behind Pretentious and you look up at all those lights on in the building. Those are all lives that are being lived. And some of those people are in the middle of great moments in their life and some of those people are being devastated right now. And there's all this humanity. And I love that about a city. So I'm not opposed to a little more anonymity. You know, the charm of Knoxville and downtown is that most of us, if we've been here a while, you can't walk 30 steps before you see somebody else you know and so forth. That's charming. But it also is counter to some of the stuff I love about big cities.
Yeah. I think for me and I've had this discussion on here before, I think there is a tendency, I'm going to be very generic when I say this. There's a tendency for dudes to make friends in bars and cigar shops. It's been my experience. To where I can drop into a city, New York, and there was one now I can't remember what it's called. Nat Sherman in New York. I would go in there and I would befriend 3 different groups of people because I would sit there and be like, nope, today is Nat Sherman Day. And I'm just going to sit in here and I'm going to smoke cigars for hours.
Right.
And I would sit next to a dude and he's like, oh, I'm a professor at this college, but I also play in a jazz thing. And we're out playing out in Brooklyn tonight. Do you want to come out? We go on at 2 a.m. I'm like, I'm staying in Harlem and I leave at 10 a.m. So no.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, I kind of wish I would have done that. But, and then go over and meet 2 old heads that are like, one of them lived in the Bronx and one of them lived downtown. They're like, you can't smoke cigars. And he was like, and in fact, where he lived in the Bronx, they were trying to pass an ordinance to where you couldn't even smoke in your backyard because you were so close to the person next to you. And I'm sitting there learning these stories, but the minute I'm done or they're done, you get up and walk away. You never see that person ever again in your life. So
There's something kind of nice about that.
Yeah.
I mean, you can make a different kind of intimacy with somebody that you're never going to see again. I'm listening to myself as I'm talking and thinking, oh, this could mean a lot of things, Alan. So maybe, I don't know. But I when I'm in New York City, Cafe Reggio is that way for me.
Yeah.
We hang out there, like we go there for breakfast, and then they're open till 4 a.m, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And they serve great coffee, but they also serve great Negronis and, a range of food. So late nights, you can stop in there for either a nightcap, or you can stop in there and have coffee because you've had your nightcap and you need coffee now. But it's set up that way. I've had great conversations there with people that, the next table is like 3 inches away from your table. So it's like you're in proximity. And I've had some great conversations in there.
I can talk to a wall.
Yeah, I'm not that way.
Oh, okay.
So I have to be in the right situation because I'm introverted.
Well, I think it's I'm a very large man that feels like a lot of times I have to put people at ease, as silly as that sounds. So I think because of that, over 30 years, it's just been like, oh, yeah, I'll just talk to this person because they'll see that I'm
You also draw attention, most likely.
I am not.
People notice you when you walk in.
Well, it's like I'm not a threat. I am not.
Right.
Don't be scared of me. It's fine. But we were sitting in a tiki bar in Atlanta, and there's this couple sitting like pretty close, and he had like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre hat on or something. And I'm just sitting there. I was like, it's so awkward that we're sitting this close and not talking to them. Like, to me, that's awkward as shit. So I just looked at him and was like, dig your hat, bro. Like that. And then we just started talking.
Sure.
Like, and I learned all about them. And my friend is kind of sitting there like, why are we talking to them? And I'm like, because it feels weird. You're sitting,
right.
Like,
you're right next
like
to
I
them.
can touch you like this, not like this.
Right.
Like this.
But I've had some great conversations with people like that. You mentioned meeting somebody and him saying, "Oh, come out tonight," blah blah blah, and we try really hard when I'm there with my daughter in the summer because we go for a week to follow those things.
Yeah.
When it happens, go with it. We met a guy in Harlem who was working outside this brownstone, and we stopped at the brownstone because it's Langston Hughes' home.
Oh wow!
But it was falling apart. And so we start talking to this guy, and we eventually learn, he doesn't tell us at first, but eventually he acknowledges that his wife owns the house. Oh. And we said, well, we were just like noticing like it's in poor repair. And he said, yeah, it's kind of a long story. And I said, yeah, we were just like talking to each other, like, why doesn't Jay-Z like give $1 million and Oprah give $1 million and, blah, 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 and then fix this place? Because it needed a good $10 million makeover. And he said, well, it's kind of complicated, which we learned more about later. But he said, there's a group and they're trying to do some things. They have a little event here tomorrow night. And I'm thinking two things. I'm thinking, a bake sale ain't gonna save this place.
Yeah.
You got to get some heavy hitters, foundation, something, and then the other thing I'm thinking about is, what's this event inside Langston Hughes' house? And so he couldn't tell us. We asked, and he couldn't see. He said, I don't know. It's a group. I think they're gonna have some music and some poetry maybe or something. I'm thinking in Langston Hughes' house in Harlem. So we immediately are on it, and we figured out. There was an Eventbrite thing that my daughter was able to find.
There you go.
And so we got tickets, $20 or $15 or something.
Should be $50.
Saving the house, right?
Yeah.
And so we arrive. Our Uber drops us out, and there's not much happening. And eventually a person shows up, and she's really sweet. She says, you're here for the thing tonight. We said, we are. She said, well, we're a little late getting started. It was us and two other white people and a host of black people who eventually showed up, and in Harlem, and they had jazz played on Langston Hughes' piano, which was still in the house.
Holy hell! Okay.
They had Langston Hughes' typewriter there, like where he wrote all his stuff. There it was.
Yeah.
And they had the Junior Poet Laureate of New York City. She was fantastic, young black woman who just slayed it.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of this. It's kind of a spoken word kind of poetry, slam poetry sort of thing, interspersed with jazz all night and, Kool-Aid or whatever they had that they were serving.
Yeah.
And there was no air conditioning. It was sweaty and hot, a Harlem summer, and it was perfect.
Yeah.
It was perfect. They had a fan blowing, they had a lamp on a pole, and like the lighting was bad, and the jazz was phenomenal, and the poetry was amazing. And we're in Langston Hughes' home in Harlem, and the light starts flickering at one point. And Felicia is the lady that runs all those things. We follow her on Instagram now. She goes over and fixes the lamp, you know. So we're driving home later, and first of all, the Uber driver says, go to Harlem. No. We said, no, it's good. And then he holds his hand up like a pistol and like, shoot. And I said, we're good. We're good. Yeah. Just, we're good. And I leaned over to Jessica and I said, when that light flickered, she said, oh my God, I know. I got chills. I said, I know. It was him, man. Yeah. It was him.
Yeah. That's amazing.
That's the kind of,
yeah,
you can't plan that.
So the friend that I said that we talked about how we could not believe we made it, I had met her at 11 a.m. out in Brooklyn. I was staying up in Harlem. And I met her up in Brooklyn at 11 a.m. We went thrift store shopping with her girlfriend. And then we went and had barbecue. And then we just chased Whimsy the entire day.
Oh, that's awesome.
Chase Whimsy is from Kevin Smith. I'll give him credit for that. But we ended up in a bar. We ended up in the back of it. I have to tell this really quick because it was such a fucking night. I still look at the picture of her and I in the back of this bar. I'm like, I can't believe this happened.
Right.
It was so insane. Sitting at the back of this bar, her best friend's husband, who was a cook up there, him and his brother showed up and hung out with us. They were from Mexico. He couldn't believe how I spoke. And he was like, you talk so Southern. I was like, no, I really don't.
Yeah,
there are people
not
down
relative
here.
to, yeah.
And so I said something like reckon. And he was like, what did you say? I was like, reckon. And he was like, reckon. And he kept trying. And his brother was just like, you're an idiot, drinking his beer. And they had piped in cricket noises back there. And he was like, this is so annoying. It's like, no, it is not. I was like, let me introduce you to cicadas. So we left and went to his baby mama, previous. They were having a baby shower for her new husband, new guy, and her had a baby. And we went. And my friend Christine and I are the two only white people in there. There's only 4 of us that speak English. And we're in Sunset Park, Brooklyn. We go up this walk up, and we walk in this room, and it is all Latino people. And everybody's looking at me just like, what the hell just walked through the door? And there's a mariachi band in there. The guy's playing the accordion, and he has bullets lining his... what do you call it? The thing that it hangs on, right. The straps.
That's cool.
And they're playing, and they're offering us food that could not have been nicer and more welcoming. And all the kids are coming up and, looking at me and smiling. And we finally leave out of there and say bye to everybody. And I think I slipped the mom a 20 or something. I was like, here you go. Thank you for having us. Like I don't know what to do. Like, this is
right.
awesome.
What's protocol here?
Yeah. And so we left and we got in an Uber, went back to that bar. And the same guy who had been complaining about the crickets, he was like, this is very relaxing. I was like, yes, it is. Yes, it is. Welcome to my world. And then he and his brother left, and Christine and I were sitting there, and that was when we had the moment where we were like, I can't believe we're here.
Yeah.
Like, we both survived, and we're here.
Right.
And this is amazing.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. To be able to be open to going for those moments.
Right.
Yeah.
And to have the privilege of surviving and everything else to get to that moment and to be able to have the money to do, all the things.
Yeah, none of that is lost on me.
Yeah. And those moments are still there.
Yeah.
And we've got to remember that.
Yeah.
Going forward for the next whatever period
of
time.
Let's say one of those moments I had here, and it was weird because I was actually alone, is I had left a movie downtown. I think the Riviera was relatively new, and I went to saw a movie at like 10 o'clock at night, like a Tuesday, because I make good decisions. And I walk out, and it's midnight, and I'm looking around. There's nobody around. And I was like, this is a city. Like, there was something about like that movie theater being downtown and it being like 12:30 at night on a Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. It's like, this is a city. Like, I don't know why it hit me. We went and saw Creed down there on Black Friday, and 4 of us walked out of the theater right as they were lighting the tree. So we got to see it, and we were all just like, we just saw this great movie, and we're walking out, and it's all these people, and
That's like one of those New York moments.
it's like,
only,
this is
yeah.
amazing. Like this,
Right. Well, a lot of people credit the theater with cementing the comeback of downtown, that it was a big turning point.
Yeah.
And, Haslam had a lot to do with that. He put his money into it.
So Dad's hottest take on all that was when Bill Haslam got elected. He loved Madeline. He campaigned for her. Big old signs in his yard. And he said, I don't think this is going to be bad for the city. He was like, I think Haslam will bring the business for his terms in there, and then Madeline will come in and she will bring the community. And that community,
that's an interesting take.
He was like, that community will have a good foothold because of the business and the opportunities that Haslam made in there. Well, and Haslam was a good mayor. He wasn't a shitty,
And then what happened? I don't know what happened, but
he
yes.
was actually a good governor too, for the most part. Ish. There were some things he stood up for that I always said he was a PR person. He was the one who went to the things and smiled,
Right.
cut the ribbons.
Right.
There were a couple of things he did, like taking down the Confederate monuments was a big one for me. I was like, this goes against the people that back you. And I appreciate that you're doing.
And I think most of the things that I would criticize that he did when he was governor, and I don't even remember now what I was so upset about at the time, but I think most of it was conceding to reality on his part. His party was going to be his party, and he had to. There were only so many things he could do. But I think a lot of people feel like that was a good. He helped get a good foothold, a good start for the city.
Are there aspects of Knoxville you think are still misunderstood by people outside of the community?
I don't know that I have a big reaction to that one. Things about Knoxville, and you're talking about people outside the community, like as in outside of, like Nashville or like
anywhere
out
else.
of. I think there's some things about Knoxville that they can't really appreciate until they see it, and I think that is the wisps of community and connectedness that we have still. That's one of the things that I've had to talk to writers who have come to me from other places. Is you got to understand, you're not just writing an anonymous thing that is just going to go out into the ether. The people you're writing about are going to see it.
Yeah.
And if they don't, there will be the 15 people that know this blog and know them that are going to tell them about it, or like that interconnectedness that, like, when you do sit down in a coffee shop, you need to be aware that if you talk about half a dozen people, there's going to be somebody at the next table that knows some of them.
Yeah.
And I think that surprises people. It's kind of what you said earlier about it's a little city that's
smallest big city or biggest small city.
Yeah, whichever way it is. I think that surprises people.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we're going to keep that. I don't know if you can keep that and grow like we're growing.
I don't know. What do you think are topics or issues you think are most important to Knoxville residents right now, other than the baseball park? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, that's
I feel like the baseball park is the sole focus for so many people right now.
It is top of mind for a lot of people. I mean, it depends on the constituencies you're talking about.
Yeah.
The people who live, not downtown. I mean, the baseball park, I think, is synonymous with downtown almost to them now. That for people who live downtown or come downtown often, I think there are other issues. I mean, parking is. I remember the first time I ever wrote about parking, and I can't remember what I said, what my stance was, or what the topic was, but I wrote about parking, and a person from the city said, that's a topic that's never going to stop, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't. I mean, there's so many things I did not understand about the nuts and bolts of cities. I had this vague notion of I love cities. And it was true. And I had been to many cities, or a good many, and loved them all. And I could tell you some things I loved about them, but I couldn't really tell you why or what made a city feel good. I didn't understand about buildings, and I didn't understand about urban design, urban development. I didn't understand any of that stuff. So I did not know that the topic of parking and cars would be such a wealth of opportunity for writers, right?
If you'll ever let me go on a Lewis Black rant, I would love to tackle the whole thing of, if you are not comfortable driving in the city, please do not park in one of the garages, because I'm tired of being stuck behind you doing 3 miles an hour, stopping every 15 feet, thinking you're going to get the first available parking space possible. Just go to the top. Just go to the top and park.
Right.
Get the hell out of my way.
You know, the thing I always remember about parking, and I probably have told you this before, but I'll tell you again for the sake of posterity here on the podcast. The thing that I always remind myself of was this one experience I had when I get frustrated with people about parking downtown and so forth. I got to remember this one. So Sundown in the City, I came to many of those. I think I've realized I probably didn't make them all, but boy, I got a high percentage, a good grade. And one that I was just absolutely determined I would get to was Steve Winwood. And so unfortunately, I got delayed getting out of work in Oak Ridge, so I was late getting downtown, and because I liked to get down here early. I'd get a tomato head sandwich, and I would go park right by the rail. Once they put a rail, at first they didn't have a rail, but right up by the stage, and I would be on the very front, ready to go, an hour before the show started. We'd eat our sandwich, we'd drink our drinks. And, then people would start filing in. Well, this one I was late, and it was just me. And I went into the place you park, which is, of course, the Market Square Garage. Yeah. That's where you park, right? And it was full. And I didn't know what to do. So I drove around kind of aimlessly, like being upset that the show was about to start, and found another parking garage that I didn't know existed. And so I parked there. I just, flew in and ditched my car as fast as I could.
I know where this is going.
And then I frantically ran toward the sound, right? And got to Market Square, had a great time. He was phenomenal. Yeah. But it was I think that was the show that was the beginning of the end, because it was like 12,000 people. It was way too many people for that area, and it was not good. Anyway, I had a great time, and Steve Winwood was awesome. And I was right up by the stage by the time he got on, because I worked my way through that crowd, right? And then it ended, and I didn't have a clue where my car was. I had no memory. Like, I just knew that I found a garage, and I remembered that it was a long way away from Market Square. That was all I had, those two things. So I start wandering, looking for a garage that looks like maybe it's going to be that garage. And I eventually found the garage, but then I didn't remember which side of the garage I exited from, and all that. So I just had to go in at the bottom and walk up every row to the top, went to my car, and eventually found my car and went away. And I remembered that, that was some years before I moved downtown. And I thought that garage was so far from Market Square. It was the Locust Street garage.
Okay. I thought you were going to end up saying City County building.
No, it was 2 blocks away.
That's hilarious.
But in my head, not being familiar,
yeah,
I thought I had traversed, like miles and miles of urban hellscape to get to Steve Winwood playing on the stage, right?
You went 1 block.
I went one. Well, give me a little. I mean, I'll probably exited on the far side.
Okay,
so I probably had to
2
walk
blocks.
two and a half. I mean, let's go 2.5.
Anyway, I thought you were
Anyway,
going to say the thing that happened to me once, which was whatever that garage is across from Locust that's connected to a hotel.
yeah, the Hilton garage.
It was open, and it was, I think, during Rhythm and Bloom, so I just parked in there.
Uh-huh.
And then I went to leave that night, and it was like, that'll be $20. And I was like, what the hell?
Right.
It was open.
Right.
Like the gates were up.
That meant it's free.
Yeah. Oh, God.
But, I have to remember that when people talk about, I don't know how to drive downtown, or I don't know where the garages are, all the things they
I think
say.
it frustrates me because they're usually people from West Knoxville driving giant trucks. And it's like, you can't even fit in here. Go somewhere else. Get out of my way.
Yeah, I have to admit, I hate the giant trucks that park downtown.
Have you noticed any emerging trends in the business or arts or culture scenes?
I think I was talking to Lisa Zinni this week about arts, and personally, I think it's richer than it's ever been, the arts scene. I think you can hear lots of kinds of music. I think we've got galleries that have opened in the last several years. I want more of it. I don't think we've got enough yet. But and the whole maker movement, I think the arts are pretty strong right now. Now, there are some cracks and some caveats in that. For example, a lot of the audiences for, say, the symphony and so forth are very old.
Yeah.
I mean, I am not a young man. I can go to the symphony and feel young again. Right? And the opera is kind of that way as well. Jazz orchestra, not quite so much. It's more of a mix of ages, but it still trends older. So there's that's a little bit of a concern. Clarence Brown has an older crowd. But I generally feel good about the arts. Other trends, CBD, THC, whatever stores. I mean, I am becoming convinced that there must be so much money to be made off gummies at this point.
Yeah.
That we're going to just see more and more of those.
Yeah.
Right now we have 3 downtown. 2 years ago we didn't have any.
That one down by the Bijou, I go to a lot of shows at the Bijou.
Well, there are 2 down by the Bijou, so you have to be clear. They're right beside each other.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, you know where Knoxville Soap and Candle used to be,
Yeah.
Jody's store? It's now CBD store also.
So every time I pass by, I guess either one of them, they're always empty. Or they have 1 or 2 people in there. And
Right.
they're open.
Right.
Because they've come across the street and had little, here's 10% off
Oh, really?
coupons. And I was like, but you're just across the street. Why don't you just stand over there
Right.
and say, come in here?
Right.
It's like, but I guess you're taking too many of your gummies, and you think this is the local
I'll
street
go way
garage.
over
This is the
there,
local street
man.
garage. Yeah, and it's just every time I pass by, it's like, man, that looks cavernous and empty.
Yeah.
I was like, it also doesn't look very welcoming. There's not a lot of seats. Like, at least with Mirage that used to be down there were seats, and it looked kind of
Right.
cool.
Right.
I was like, it looks so.
And Mirage is still a thing, right? It's just
Yeah.
at the other end of the street.
Yeah, that's a whole nother discussion.
That's a discussion.
Skybox, Sean and I used to go there and smoke a lot in the wintertime when it was too cold, and they disallowed smoking in there. And it was like, damn it. This was our one place where we
Right.
could hang out.
There's
In the-
Prez Pub.
I don't want to have to pay a cover, and I want to be able to talk to my friend and not have to
Scream.
I am anti-talking during shows.
I agree with you, and it's for multiple reasons. One, out of respect for the musicians, but also because I can't hear you, and I hate yelling to try to be heard. And so, I want to either listen to music or I want to go somewhere to talk.
Yeah.
I don't want to do the two.
No. I have actually fussed at people and said, there is a bar outside that you can go to and talk, but not in here.
Right.
Like
There are just some venues, though, that do not, New York is real clear. There are listening venues.
Yeah.
And you listen. And you don't want to not listen because the consequences in New York would be serious.
Yeah.
And I love that.
I feel like Big Ears is more of a,
Absolutely.
like people pay the hell
Yeah.
attention. Because a lot of
Almost-
times they're seeing one of one.
Right.
Like they're saying, dude, yeah. There are some, whenever we do lunch, we're going to have to run through that list because there are people coming this year that'll be like, you need to go see these.
I need that because, to be honest, so far what I have seen, I don't really know a lot of.
There are 3 for sure. There are 4 for sure just off top of head, because 2 of them got announced today. 3.
Yesterday.
Beth Gibbons, unbelievable. Portishead is the name of her band. You need to check out Portishead.
Yeah, no, I'm sort of familiar with them.
Beth Gibbons, and then Julian Baker and Torres. Julian Baker's one of the best shows I've ever seen at the Bijou was Julian Baker. And she's part of Boy Genius. Torres is a singer that I saw at Open Chord, but I'd been a fan of Torres forever. And then the other one, Rufus Wainwright. Rufus Wainwright is one of my favorite musicians.
I'm totally familiar with him. Did you see Brokeback Mountain?
Yeah. Oh, his song.
And he did most of the music, or a lot of the music for that. But the theme, I mean, I thought his work was great in that.
And Wayne White's band, it's called something like Caller Unknown, Unknown Caller. That will be a lot.
So you're
of fun.
going to have to definitely give me your list, because I look at them and I'm drawing a blank on a lot of it, which I don't mind.
No,
I don't mind at Big Ears having like these stretches where like, okay, I don't know anybody I want to see, so I'm just going to like see who this is.
And there's a jazz artist that I didn't know much about, and I subscribe to, or I follow a lot of music blogs, and I listened to their music. I was like, this sounds like a Big Ears person. And I looked on Big Ears website, and damned if they weren't coming this year. I was like, hell yeah.
That's funny. I have gotten the nerve up in recent years to, when I hear one of those bands, to text Ashley.
Yeah.
And say, hey,
yeah,
I think you ought to consider that. And usually that's the response. We've got them scheduled for next year, or, well, they're sitting in with so-and-so this year. I so far, I haven't had him just like laugh in my face.
I want to grab him because he only remembers me 1 out of every 30 times I see him. But I want to grab him and say, I need you to bring back curating Big Ears. How they used to have one person curating who came. That's how.
Right. They had the artists who did it.
Yes,
Yeah.
like Terry Riley, I think, did it one time.
Right.
The dude from The National did it another time. And I was like, I need you to let Sigur Rós curate a Big Ears. Because Sigur Rós is my favorite band. They are unbelievable.
So there's another one. You
Yes.
gotta text me that when we're done.
I'm gonna write these down. Sigur Rós. Wait, I'm gonna write Big Ears, music, and then I'm gonna write Sigur Rós. So, but they're an Icelandic band that sings in their own made-up language. But it is the most beautiful. When I saw them at the Ryman, not this last time, the time before, I cried so aggressively twice that I had to reach into my pockets and grab my thighs to calm myself down.
Wow.
Like, it was so emotional. Like,
You saw them at the Ryman?
yeah, twice.
Which is an emotional place anyway.
The last time I saw them with a full orchestra, I did not cry. My buddy was like, but you were going to cry. And I was like, they didn't play the songs that make me cry. There's like 5 songs that make me cry. They didn't play any of those songs.
Right.
So it's like the time before they did. And I'm just screaming.
Ugly crying, huh?
Yeah, it was bad. It was great. It was great.
The Ryman is one of the my favorite venues in the world. When I was little, I don't know how my parents afforded it, but somehow they figured it out. And we would go to Nashville to the Grand Ole Opry when it was at the Ryman. And probably, I don't know, half a dozen times I went to the Grand Ole Opry. And
Holy hell.
I loved all those guys, Roy Acuff and all the old people.
Nashville's another town that when I would go in like the early 2000s, it was dead.
Yeah.
Like, you would go on a Friday night and it would start getting a little bit busy around 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And it wasn't anything.
No, it would, when I was going there, of course, growing up in the 60s and 70s, it was not either. And then, that's another, talking about Knoxville, but in terms of development and so forth, that's one of the things that a lot of people say is we don't want to turn into Nashville, because Nashville had such explosive growth that it's kind of miserable to be there now. Yeah. And in a lot of parts of it. There are parts where you can still go and it's okay, East Nashville, whatever, but
even East Nashville's getting overcrowded.
And I don't know what the answer to that is. How do you not become Nashville? How do you not grow in ways, because what you're saying is let's not grow in ways that will make this a less desirable place. How do you manage that? We're in a capitalist society where if you have the money, you can buy a building, or you can knock a building down, or you can, we're in property rights state. You can't tell anybody what they can do on their property. So they can build ugly if they want to. They can build massive if they want to. They can do whatever they want to. They can open the 17th CBD shop downtown if they want to, because that's who we are, right? So I don't know how you say, well, we're not going to do that.
The biggest struggle I have right now with the development downtown is stop making ugly buildings. Like, you look at all these old buildings, they look cool.
Right.
They have a soul to them. And now all these buildings, like if you go down on Suttrie's Landing and look at those apartments, it's like, these are the ugliest things. And this is your right on the water. Mm-hmm. These should not be ugly.
There's a specific, set of materials and way of constructing that they all use. And I don't know what the answer to that is either, because if somebody owns the property, they can build the building that they want to build. And, buildings are being built to maximize the profit of the people who are building them, which means you're going to go cheap and, then you're going to turn around and sell the building. These are people who don't live here.
Yeah.
So their point is to make money. And that's the country we decided to be. Yeah. And so we are.
I think we got down a rabbit hole on this one of these times. We met up talking about the Pryor Brown Garage. It's like that person could have made an insane amount of money in that time that they have owned it, but they just let it get dilapidated. Anyway.
Because they thought they could make more money.
Yeah. What are some challenges you think you face as a local journalist and blogger? What would you consider yourself? Journalist, blogger, writer?
I think when I said earlier, I don't consider myself to be a photographer, because there's, when I look at photographers, like, oh yeah, that's a different level than what I'm doing. And I kind of feel the same way about calling myself a journalist. Like, I am a journalist, and I think it's fair to say that I am, but I don't consider myself to be a Jesse Mayshark or, somebody who's really done a journalism career or has had journalist classes. A lot of my approach and my ethics and everything else is based on just what I learned in other venues. I mean, I learned a pretty serious code of ethics as a counselor. And so a lot of that I just kind of translate over, and I think I understand a little bit about how journalism works. So blogger seems pejorative to say.
Yeah.
It seems like diminutive, right? Journalist seems pretty lofty. Citizen reporter is probably fair.
Okay.
I do consider my website to be probably more accurately described as a website rather than a blog at this point.
Yeah.
But I don't know really what the distinction in that is. So I would say challenges, though, for any entrepreneurial media at this time is, revenue stream. I mean, that's the whole game. How do you produce good quality work and have enough revenue to make it work? I mean, Compass tries the paywall, and I don't know how they're doing. I don't know if they're doing great or struggling. I have no idea. Yeah. The News Sentinel, of course, went with a paywall at some point because subscriptions would no longer carry it, of the physical paper, or ads would no longer carry it. I mean, it's solving that mystery of how can you make enough money to be more than just like a one-person operation. I've made enough money over the years before the pandemic, which wiped me out. But before that, I was making about what I was making working in public schools. It wasn't far off, which is pretty decent if you want to write the article every day and take every picture and go to every event and do every interview and do everything. If you want to pay somebody to do technical support, if you want to pay somebody to write an article, and so forth, it quickly becomes impractical.
Yeah.
So that's the nut that is just so difficult to crack.
Yeah. Like, how do you see the role of, like, yours is a very hyper-focused, localized blog versus, like, I'd say mainstream media, but also at the same time you're going up against content creation on social media, like Downtown Knoxville or any of those, to where it's quick.
Oh, there's even one now called Knoxville Insider. And their logo is displayed with the Insider above Knoxville, so it's Insider Knoxville. Now, how close is that to a blog that we all know and love? And as far as I can tell, they don't generate their own content. They're pulling content from the local television stations, and they're just, I forget what you call that. Aggregator, exactly. So... I think you just have to find your own spot and dig in and do your thing. I think the fact that I was so hyper-focused is why I've survived. If I had been about Knox County, it would have been too big and impossible, and I think my efforts would have had to been necessarily so scattershot that I don't think I would have really attracted a following. So to me, that's one of the secrets, is finding a very specific thing that enough people are interested in that it might work.
Yeah. I feel like that's also a thin line of trying to figure out that balance of what is too focused and what is too broad.
I think if it was a blog about everything,
Yeah.
I probably would have never gained traction.
Yeah.
I think if it was a blog about my belly button, which a lot of blogs were, it's like, oh, today I'm feeling, whatever, angst. I think that would have not gone anywhere, wouldn't have appealed to anybody for a long term. I found a topic that has a wide enough interest.
Yeah.
Downtown Knoxville isn't just interesting to people who live downtown. It's people who go to downtown. It's people who once lived in Knoxville. It's people who are interested in cities and urban conversations. I think just as a city is a microcosm of humanity,
Yeah.
I think a website that focuses on a small area like that can be a microcosm of everything. Like I've written about immigration. I've written about education. I've written about Nazis. I've written about, homelessness. I've written about, all those are things that somebody in Michigan could read and understand and relate to. And I read the New York Times every day, and I find stuff in it. I used to read the New York Times every day.
Up until recently.
I find stuff in there all the time that I think, that's what we're struggling with. That's about Knoxville, even though it's not.
Yeah.
When I was in New York City, and I feel like I've only talked about New York City tonight, but when I was in New York City this past summer, that was one of the things I said to my daughter. I said, if I lived in the village, if I moved to the village right now, and decided I wanted to, I could start something hyper-focused on the village, and I could make it work. I really believe I could.
I've got friends that lived in New York, and one of the times I was surprised to learn that there are sections. There were people, I don't know about the village, but I can't remember where we were at. Upper West Side. That's like, those people never leave the Upper West Side.
Oh, right.
That it also happens there, where you have anything.
Right.
Well, I joke about my friend Michelle, who lives in Jersey, and I was like, New York City's right there, and you never go. And she was like, I can't tell you the last time I went to New York City. It's like, it's right there.
Oh, and I think the antipathy would be returned by anybody in New York City.
Yeah.
Go to Jersey?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, but there's so much stuff like there'll be somebody performing that she wants to see. I was like, it's right there.
Right.
Just go.
It's a train ride away.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. But I do think what I have done could be replicated. I think it could be replicated. We talked about our roots in Mobile, Alabama, and downtown Mobile has been interesting to watch it kind of emerge and reemerge. And we talked about it for years, that I could go down there and do what I do here, and I think it would be helpful. I think if nothing else, I hope that what I have done over the last 15 years has been helpful to Knoxville as a unifying kind of point, as a message to people that no, actually your own city is pretty cool, that there
Yeah.
are things happening here that other people will come from out of state for.
Yeah.
And I hope that's been helpful.
There's a guy, his David Bazan, but his band is called Pedro the Lion.
Mm-hmm.
So, oddly enough, when Julian Baker played the Bijou, David Bazan as a solo act opened for Julian Baker. But Pedro the Lion is a bigger known band in indie scenes. Let's say that. He did a house tour across the country, but he started at the Pilot Light because he was like, I want to play the Pilot Light. And it was packed. Absolutely jam-packed.
Gosh, 36 people, huh?
Hey now.
I mean, really?
I think it's 75 people.
I feel kind of crowded when it gets above 30. I'm just going to
When I saw W. Kamau Bell do a comedy show there, and it was
Oh, I saw that. I was there for that.
It was
That was years ago, right?
75 seated. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I don't remember us seating.
yeah, there were
Yeah.
tables and
Well, maybe
chairs
I'm
and
talking
stuff.
about a different show.
Yeah. He came up after the show. He did meet and greet, and I was the last person. And I walked up to him. He was like, "Finally, a normal sized person."
Fun.
And then he was like, "Okay, now when we take this photo, I'm getting on my tippy toes. I need you to put under the photo that I am on my tippy toes." I was like, "I will put that on there." Come on, Bill.
That's funny. Actually, no, I did not see him there. My connection with him is his. What was it? United States of Kamau or whatever
Yeah.
that was.
It was on CNN.
And he did an episode on
United Shades of America.
That's it. He did a episode that had a lot of Mobile footage in it.
That
His grandmother was from Mobile or something.
That's stupid. Don't get me started on that one right there, Max.
Mm.
The handling of that by that schmuck who's at the top of them. He's the biggest idiot. Like how because they were all available on like Hulu, and then the minute they made HBO Max a thing, they CNN pulled everything over to Max. And then I don't even think they're available there anymore. So they're just not available anymore.
That was a great series.
I was like, God, you're killing me, man.
That was
It was a great series in that filled the void a little bit of Bourdain. Because of him going across this country. He did a different version of, I feel like, of that. Like going to prisons and stuff.
Right.
After Bourdain passed and then him doing that, I felt like it was a good.
That's an interesting connection to make.
Yeah. How have you been able to see the impact of your work directly in Knoxville's development or community efforts?
Well, one thing that I thought of while we were talking about the last thing is I have had, I don't know how many, I mean, not dozens, but I've had a lot of people say to me, well, I moved to Knoxville because I found your website. I mean, a couple of people I'm friends with right now, they'll say, yeah, Knoxville wasn't on my radar. I did some kind of search and came up with an article from your website and started looking into it, and that's why I live here today. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, to think that somebody long distance would do that. I don't know, like the story I told earlier about when I did the munitions story and the city contacted me. I do think that at times we've had some really good conversations on the website. At times we've had some really bad ones also, but I think we've had some really good ones where professional architects weighed in and kind of interacted with people who were saying things that are nonsensical about architecture or about development. And developers have weighed in and responded to people who critiqued their development.
Yeah.
And city officials have weighed in to discuss something that somebody's saying, well, the city ought to, or the city whatever. And where else can you do that?
Yeah.
Name another place in Knoxville, another online spot or in person, whatever, where a layperson could talk to an architect and an architect could talk to a developer and a developer could talk to a city person, or a regular person could talk to a city person. I mean, I think at its best, the comment section, when I've written articles that are, that touch a nerve or that people are intense about, I think that's super valuable to have that space where that can happen.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about architecture or any of that stuff when I started, and I wrote some stupid stuff. And I would have, it happened over and over. I would have people say, well, actually, and, kind of explain it for me, not in the way that we now do social media where we, blast the other person and call them names and whatever, but just in a genuine kind of engaging sort of way. And I realized, oh, okay, I didn't understand that thing.
Yeah.
And I learned something. And I think a lot of my readers did in some of those conversations. Now, I wish we had more of those kind of conversations than the other kind. But.
My latest thing in the last year is some people have not been punched in the face, and it shows.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something we all need.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite hidden gems or underrated spots in town?
I will say some of my favorite spots. I don't know if they're underrated.
Other than Java.
Yeah. Have we covered that? Yeah, that's certainly.
Sean owes me some money for that. No, I'm just kidding.
He does not.
No.
He would give you money before he would owe you money.
I want to eventually get him and Jeff on here to talk about coffee.
Yeah.
Jeff Schaffenacher.
Good luck.
I know. The two of them are the hardest.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
They
But if I bump into Sean at Wild Love, we will stand there and talk
of
for
course.
an hour.
Same.
Yeah.
But they are both not public-facing people. They don't.
Yeah.
They don't
I'll
want.
talk to Meg. I don't. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. I was to have the two of them on to just.
That would be so valuable. I mean,
Yeah.
I've interviewed them, but it's hard to get that lined up because they're just not public-facing people. I mean, Jeff is more so.
Yeah. Although Jeff and I this is still one of the greatest things ever. Him and Kristen, when they lived in South Knoxville,
Right.
they used to do these breakfasts.
Right, I know.
Oh, okay.
I went to one of them.
Did I tell you about this where he and I sat there and planned out where the Smokies baseball stadium could go in Knoxville? We sat on his couch for 2 hours mapping it all out.
So did you figure it out? Did you pick the right spot?
It was where Holston Gas is on the river on the south side. Kind of taking a cue from Chattanooga Stadium being on the river. I was like, if you have it down there, and we started mapping it, I was like, then you could have concerts, you could do this. We were running through all the things you could do, and then at the end, it came down to like, if we only had like $10 million to make this happen.
But in a place near you, there was somebody that did have $10 million.
Yeah.
And
Well,
had
this
plans.
was after, I think right after Randy had bought the team.
Okay.
So the funny thing is when Randy, here is a exclusive. I was working at PetSafe when he bought the Smokies. I sat across from him at lunch the day after he bought the Smokies, and I looked at him and was like, so when are you bringing them to Knoxville? And he's like, I'm planning on it. I was like, I know you are. I know you're planning on it because that's where the money is.
Right.
And he was like, yeah, I'm planning it. I still remember going out there because the stadium was full of PetSafe people, and it was still a lot of empty seats. This was 7 or 8 years ago. Like they do pretty good. I think they've started doing better now that it's known that they're coming to Knoxville, because a lot of the people out there will go, no, we go to games. Like, no, you weren't here the year before that got announced. Like,
I would love to think that we're going to have some of the kind of shows they had. Like I saw Willie and Bob together at the stadium out there, and like bring them to. Yeah, I'll go to that.
I think ZZ Top played there a couple times,
Really?
like Skinner or somebody. Yeah,
You know, it's really hard for me to see those bands now, and I know this is an old man thing, but I saw ZZ Top at their absolute peak in the late 70s, before Sharp Dressed Man and all that.
Yeah.
Like when they were still gritty, but they had, Tres Hombres and all those albums had been out. And then same with Leonard Skinner. I saw Leonard Skinner when Ronnie was alive.
Man.
And I was standing like right at Ronnie's feet.
This was a conversation. Oh my God, I'm gonna go. This is only funny to the 3 people who are there. But I have a monthly free illustrators group, Knox Illo Society. There's my plug.
Okay.
Please follow on Instagram and Facebook, and free monthly events. If you draw anything, you can just come and hang out. You don't have to draw. Like, you don't have. So anyway, it's me, and it's usually me and a bunch of women. Like I'm always the oldest person there, but I've curated this group of about 5 women that come every time we do this.
Wasn't there a presidential candidate that said he curated women?
No, he kept them in binders.
In binders, that was it. Well, I mean, he had to curate them. I mean,
Yeah.
he had to put certain ones in the binders.
Mine is more welcoming and inviting and open.
You can run for president
Yeah,
now because you curated women.
Well, I think that bar is super low.
Oh, really?
Yeah. One of the young women, Esther, who's been on this podcast before, is Jewish.
Okay.
And then another woman, Anna, who happens to be my neighbor over there, is not. And so Esther starts using terms like Zionist, and Anna's like, what does that mean? Here's where it gets funny. Somebody plays Freebird on the jukebox. And so she starts talking about being a Zionist and all this, and I just stopped her in the middle of it. I was like, the funniest part about this to me is you are soundtracked by Freebird. So you're talking about they played Freebird 3 times. And it was like Freebird, Hotel California. Like it was all the big, long, epic songs. And they played Freebird 3 times. And every time she was right in the middle of talking about this, I was like, well, in Gaza, if I leave. And I was just like, this is the funniest thing I've ever heard. I was like, this is cracking me up. This is so silly that's what's backing you up here. Like at Barley's, like somebody's playing Freebird. But I had to, because they're younger than me, I had to explain. It was like, Leonard Skinnard, I understand. But when Ronnie was in the band, they wrote an entire song about getting rid of guns. Saturday Night Special. I was like, they were a lot more, they weren't the people they are now.
No.
Not at all.
No, and I would have loved to have seen how they would have evolved if Ronnie had lived.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe they would have broken up and gone their own direction. Who knows what would have happened, but
Yeah.
he was a good songwriter. He was a very good songwriter, and he was bright.
Yeah.
And they had gotten clean when they died.
Yeah.
They had finally gotten clean. And so who knows what that would have led to. But you're right. I mean, how can you even put that in your brain now that a Southern rock band would do an anti-gun song?
Yeah. At that point in time. Yeah.
At any
Well,
point.
but on the flip side, I'm not a gun person. I'm, of course, a samurai sword
I
person.
see that you're
I like
samurai
pointing at
swords.
the samurai swords because it's so
I've
silly and
been
stupid.
watching them because
It's
I'm
so
pointed
silly
right
and
at them
stupid.
tonight. Yeah.
They were probably as dull as baseball bats, but they will not hurt. Well, they'll hurt because it's me, and whap. But was not raised, and I've had to like reckon with and figure out why I'm not a gun person. And I was raised by men who served, who probably had to do very bad shit in World War II and Vietnam.
Right.
They didn't have guns.
Right.
No, they had a BB rifle.
Right.
That was the only thing. And then going to school up at Fulton and having friends die in drive-bys and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, I don't like guns. And it's weird having people, like we have a thing at work like one time a year. It's like something day out to where it's everybody who's not like a producer or senior staff goes. And like we did Top Golf one year. We did the Selfie Museum in Pigeon Forge one year. They did shopping at the outlets in Sevierville this year. Used to be called Gals Day Out. There were a grand total of 2 of us guys there the last time and probably 40 women. And, but one of them was like, yeah, we all went shooting one time. And I looked and I was like, you can leave me out of that one. Like, really? You don't like it? I was like, nah, I'm good. And they're like, really? You don't want to? I was like, no, I don't. It's not my thing, man. And it's weird to have people think that that's weird.
Yeah, I guess, you can't grow up in the South without having a complicated relationship with guns, whether it's that you had people in your family who had served, and so they had strong feelings in that kind of way about guns. One of the things that I puzzle over and I've never been able to really figure out, because I guess I would consider myself probably in the totally in the gun control side of the ledger.
Yeah.
But, and you always hear the other side say, well, guns aren't the problem, people are the problem. So we should, I don't even know really completely how they come to that, but yeah. So you should leave our guns alone and deal with the people, I guess, that are going to do the shooting, whatever. And then the gun control side says, well, no, if it's access to guns. And I do believe that.
Yeah.
But I got this big asterisk in my head that I can't ever shake. I grew up in Alabama in the 1960s and 70s, and we all had guns. By the time I was a teenager, I had 2 shotguns, 2 rifles, and a pistol that were mine. And Dad had a lot more than that. And we hunted, squirrel hunted, deer hunted, duck hunted. And sometimes we just went out in the woods and shot guns because it was fun. Grew up, adoring cowboy culture, which has all kinds of issues, now from a 2024 perspective. But at the time, John Wayne was a big screen hero, and, the whole cowboy thing. I did play the indigenous person most of the times when we played cowboys and Indians. I was the Indian. But so I grew up with guns. We all had guns. Everybody I went to high school with had guns. We had many guns in our house. I mean, it was probably 20 guns in my house.
Wow.
And same with all my friends. Everybody had guns. You just had guns.
Yeah.
Nobody ever considered bringing one to school and shooting anybody.
No.
Nobody ever thought about that. In fact, I probably brought a gun to school more than one time because I probably had it on the gun rack in the back of the truck that I drove to school and didn't think about it, and nobody said anything about it. You didn't get it out, obviously, and it was unloaded because you knew gun safety. But I don't understand. I mean, the part of that argument that I do stumble over is, well, if it's really guns and access to guns, why didn't we have a lot more dead teachers and students then? Something changed in culture.
Yeah.
That made that a thought or a possibility, or I don't know what changed, but we all had guns and we didn't shoot each other.
Well, I don't hate to, but because I feel like it is diminishes the message. But if I can quote from a movie,
of course,
that is a silly movie, Friday, with Ice Cube.
We started this conversation with me quoting from Voltaire. So
okay,
if you want to quote from a movie, feel free.
From the late great John Witherspoon.
Okay.
Friday. The whole thing is he's afraid he's going to get beat up by Debo. I've seen this movie a lot of times. And so he gets a gun. And his dad walks in on him, and he was like, you fight. You don't use the gun, you fight. And you live to fight another day. And I think there's a lot of people now that they don't know how to get an ass whooping. I don't know how to say that without sounding more redneck, but that's the default because they're afraid they're going to get hurt. Fear. It's all fear. That's what it is.
I don't know. Does fear make the kid take a gun into a school and shoot a bunch of people?
That part I don't know. I know the part of most of the people I know that are more right-leaning that own a bunch of guns. It's all out of fear. It's all out of... One guy, literally, I've talked to him, and I've mentioned, like, New York. He's like, oh, I won't go there. It's too scary there. I was like, it literally is not. You're fine. You're going to be fine. Like, I understand I come from a place of big guy privilege, but you're going to be fine there. And then I mentioned San Francisco. He's like, no, it's too scary.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, no, it's not. Have you ever been? No shit. Yeah. I think a lot of those fear, as far as the kids, God knows. I don't know. I don't know what has changed there. I was at Whittle Springs when there was a school shooting at Whittle Springs.
Really?
With a guy I grew up with and his older brother. I was around the front, I think, waiting on my grandmother to pick us up, and at the door that faces Whittle Springs, there's two. There's one closer to the road, and the one further, Joey was fighting this guy, Keith. Keith had come from Fulton. Don't know. I can't remember why they got in a fight. Joey was going to Whittle Springs. The 8th grader versus a 9th grader. Joey's brother John came down, who's in 10th grade, I think, and intervened. And Keith, as he was falling back, pulled out a gun and shot John. And so I heard it from the front, and then somebody pulled John into the school to get him away from Keith because the door's locked behind you. And could hear, I think it was the English teacher, could hear somebody trying to break down the door to get in and was terrified. And it turned out it was Joey trying to kick in the door to get to his brother. Keith had ran away. And I think from what I remember, it kind of screwed up John for the rest of his life. I think he ended up committing suicide. Yeah. Yeah. And that was in 91, 90, somewhere around there.
I guess there are different kinds of shootings. I mean, that's an altercation.
Altercation with a shooting.
Yeah.
But that's the first one. Like, I had never heard of a shooting at a school at that point. Columbine. That's the name of the school.
There you go. Thank you very much.
I kept having Aurora in my head because of the dude at the Batman movie shooting.
That was years later.
Columbine. But yes, those where it's actually targeted. I don't know. I mean,
and sometimes you can say, okay, it was targeted at this group because this person hated that group, like the shooting at the Unitarian Church or the shooting at the gay club in Orlando.
Yeah.
You can say, okay, well, there's something going on there about that issue or that group with that person. But then sometimes, like the Vegas shooter where he shot up all the people at the country music concert. Okay, I don't like modern country music either, but what's that about?
I don't know.
So I don't know what's happened, but it's not. I come down, 10% on the side of the gun advocates who say it's not the guns, because there's another element.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know what it is, but there is another element.
Anytime Dad fusses about homeless people, I said, and this is, oh my God, this is a bigger conversation. But it's like, who you can blame for that? Ronald Reagan, because he's the one who closed all the mental health facilities in the 80s, put a lot of people out on the street.
He did.
And a lot of those people do not have places to go to anymore, except for inpatient, and I don't think you can stay at inpatient treatment.
No, you can't keep somebody against their will unless they're a danger to themselves.
I was like, and I wonder how many of those kids may have been trucked off to a mental health facility. Also, how many of those kids gave warning signs and nobody paid attention to them?
Well, like the one recently where the father got charged because after the police had pushed him on, we hear all this stuff from your kid. He bought his kid a gun.
Yeah.
Oh God. Right. I don't know. I don't know the answer. Yeah. I don't know the answer on very many things.
Here. I got two last questions.
Maybe I know these answers. Yeah. Give me some.
Do you have any specific goals or directions planned for the site in the coming years?
I am getting to a point. You remember I said I had a 15-year statute of limitation on careers. And guess how long I've been doing the website.
15 years, yeah.
15 years this coming June. So I'm feeling it. I mean, this gets back to what we talked about media. I mean, if one person is doing it all, or two people, as in the case of the Compass or whatever, you can't sustain that forever. You just can't. It wears you out. And for me, a turning point in that regard was the pandemic, because I did all the pandemic coverage and I wrote about downtown Knoxville. So I wrote 2 articles a day for most of a year while I had my grandchildren living with me in our brand new 1,700 square foot condo. Yeah. So that took a lot out of me. So, but I already knew that 15 years is a marker with me. I know myself well enough. And, this particular end of 15 years comes at a point where I'm progressing in age. And I have other things I want to do. So I'm struggling with this right now, to be honest with you. Yeah. I've thought about selling. I've thought about closing it and just saying, tying a bow around it and saying, there you go, Knoxville. That was my present. Now I'm done. Every time I mention that, I get a wave of, oh my God, we have to have that. How will we know what's going on? How do we,
we have to have that. We don't want to pay for it or do any work, but we have to have this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and I do feel an obligation, I guess, in a sense. So, my latest move is that I am, bringing in some other writers and trying to see if I can build a stable of writers so that I can, for example, be gone for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Because it's impossible doing it by myself to ever do that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the direction right now. No changes in coverage. I'm not going to expand coverage to a wider area. That's one thing I get asked about a lot. Although what is downtown is a perennial question, and that answer to that is not the same as it was 15 years ago. It is a bigger geographic area.
Yeah. Hear me out. Learn those 3 chords
Mm-hmm.
and start a band that all you do is perform the works of Voltaire.
And we could call it, I don't know, something Voltaire's Vultures, or I don't know, something.
Voltaire's Vault could be the name of your album.
That's true.
Yeah. That's the next 15 years.
That's the next 15 years. No, the next 15 years are going to involve a lot of sitting and drinking coffee and reading books.
Yeah. How do you see Knoxville evolving over the next 5 to 10 years?
I think we're about to hit a phase like we couldn't have imagined in the past. I mean, if you look back at this 15 years that I've covered, it is a 15-year period of stunning growth. Maybe the most development ever in the city of Knoxville, although I don't know, Jack Neely would argue maybe when the train came through, that spurred an incredible moment there. But it's certainly the biggest in the living memory.
Yeah.
The biggest growth, definitely, in Knoxville, in living memory. And so that's been amazing to watch and document and ride along with. I think the next 15 are going to dwarf it. I think we're about to see development like we haven't seen. I think it's going to be a lot of outside money coming in, and that's going to mean that we can do some big things that we've not done. It will also mean that some things are probably going to be done that we would prefer weren't done. I think the stadium is sort of the marker. I mean, part of when I was thinking about just kind of wrapping it up and tying a bow around it, part of it was when the stadium opens, I feel like that's the end of the era I've covered, and a new era is beginning.
Okay. All right.
I think it's going to be explosive growth.
I'm seeing more new development in smaller areas start to go up, which is something you don't normally see. Normally stays one level. But I've seen some where I was like, it's weird to have 2 stories through here. I was like, I think that's the next thing. In some of the more developed parts, it's going to be a start flattening and then going up.
We've got some different housing types coming in already.
Yeah. I'm tired of hearing about the housing crisis. We don't have a housing crisis. We have an affordable housing crisis. That's my thought.
I've written about that some lately because Knox Heritage did their preservation conference recently, and the keynote speaker, her big thing was historic preservation. We need to start thinking in terms of saving these small, older houses, not like the grand mansions. That's fine. Those are special. Yeah, sure, save them. But we're losing those old, smaller homes, the 1,000 square feet, the 800 square feet, the 1,200 square feet. What I started in South Knoxville, our first house was 760 square feet and 2 bedrooms and 1 bath. And it was affordable.
Yeah.
That's why we started there. And we're knocking those down far faster than we're replacing them with any kind of moderately affordable housing. Yeah. And that is our affordable housing stock, those older, smaller homes.
Yeah.
And so that was pretty striking. So I wrote about that recently, and I agree. I mean, it's affordable housing, I mean, what have we built in Knox County in the 40 years I've lived here? Bigger, 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 bigger boxes. Nobody builds small houses.
Yeah, the big trend, because I was working for a real estate magazine where in the late 90s, early 2000s, was those condo developments, like in Halls and Powell, where they're all connected, and they are the crappiest. And they were $80,000 back then, which fried my brain. It's like, who the hell would pay $80,000?
They're probably 600,000 now.
Yeah. Whereas they were probably the same size as your place in South Knoxville, and they were $80,000, and they probably should have been $50,000 at most.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think there are a lot of different elements that go into the housing crisis, but one of them that I always come back to in my head is boarding houses.
Yeah.
If you go back to the 1970s and before, we had thousands of boarding houses across this country, and a lot of them had like options, like maybe you could only afford to share a bed, literally.
Yeah.
They would have shift workers who... One of them had the bed in the daytime, and one of them had the bed at the nighttime. You got a little more affluent, you could afford your own bed, in a room by yourself, no kitchen, no, bathroom. It was down the hall. And then maybe you got a little bit more and you could afford a bathroom in your efficiency, basically, apartment, but no kitchen because that was downstairs and everybody ate together. But all of those gradations are missing now.
Yeah.
We have nothing like that now.
Well, there's those old buildings on Magnolia, those old brick buildings that are all smaller apartments that should be affordable. It's like, build out some of but they're not going to make enough money. It's all about making money.
Right.
You are worth $20 million and you got to go for that $21 million as opposed. That's what kills me. That's why I was complaining about making stuff look good. I was like, let's say it costs them there across the river $30 million to build those apartments. Spend $32 million and make them look good. Like, that's the part I don't understand. Because you're going to have a longer tail on those if they look good, instead of putting them up cheaply and knowing you can eventually just tear them down. How much is it going to cost you then because I work in insurance now, I understand the term replacement cost. Cost of lumber, the cost of sheetrock, all that has gone up. So how much is that going to cost you later because you're putting them up crappy now?
The answer to that is that most of the people who are building these large developments are only building them to get on board, rent them out, and then sell them.
See, I didn't know that part.
They're selling the buildings. So, they're not going to be around when they fall apart. That's somebody else's problem.
So silly. So silly. God, I was hoping we'd end on positive. Hidden gem of Knoxville. Did you answer that?
I didn't really. I said one favorite. I mean, we talked about Java for a second, and then you just allowed that one. I will say there are. I don't know that I have hidden gems, but I will say that there are a lot of places now that I really love that couldn't have been possible 15 years ago. And I think of Potchkey, for example, or I think of Adopo. I think of J.C. Holdway. Food as an obvious one. But also, I mentioned earlier, galleries. I think we've got some really special galleries now. Lilienthal Gallery is doing some things that nobody else has done in Knoxville. Pivot Point Gallery, I think, is a really good gallery as well, both in Emory place. So, which is another symptom of, kind of things moving in that direction. I just think there are more places and there are more people doing some different kinds of things that wouldn't have necessarily worked 10 years ago, but now they work. Do you remember Harry's that was in the place of Harold's on the 100 block? That was a really great place, and they had really good food. Yeah. But we weren't ready for that yet.
They dug up that road. That's what kind of screwed them, wasn't it?
That happened. But also, people were saying, well, you're paying $10 for a sandwich, or whatever it was. And it was because of what they were doing with the sandwich.
I remember Paige Travis and Amy Lee Hubbard organizing us all to go there and have dinner one night because they had like breakfast at dinner. And I think I had like chicken and waffles, which was abstract at that point here in town.
Right.
But it was like $14. I was like, what are you talking about? $14? Holy shit. No, I can't afford that. Like, I think them tearing up the 100 Rock really kind of screwed them, but yeah, I think there have been a lot of places like that were just one step ahead. That were just, we weren't ready for them.
No, I think not. And your grocery store, to your point, maybe we're getting close, but I don't know. Yeah, so I think there are a lot more special spots. Like, here's another one. Union Avenue Books is an anchor for downtown to me. I mean, without Union Avenue Books, I don't know that we would. It's hard for me to say a place is a city if they don't have a great independent bookstore. But Addison's is a great jewel, as well, and that has been a marvelous addition to downtown. And I don't buy a lot of books there, but it's just a really cool spot, and he is committed to having it stay there and be a cool spot.
Yeah,
even if it doesn't make money.
Yeah,
which is pretty groovy.
Yeah,
if you can do it, and some people can.
Need more of those people.
Yes, we do. But we've got a lot of them. We've got a lot of great people doing good things.
Yeah. Yeah. I get frustrated at people, but that's me.
There are plenty of those people too.
All right. Thank you.
I gave you a positive note to end on there.
Yeah. Thank you.